Thank you. I have been asked to just start, and then people will just come in. Um, so this is going to be my story. Actually, I think Alexei just asked me to speak because he's in my slides. Um, so it might also be uncomfortable for you because a lot of people don't like talking about these things and don't like hearing about these things. So if it feels uncomfortable, you are free to leave. I will not take it as you finding my stuff boring. So this is how I lived most of my life. The first 40 years of my life almost, I was always afraid. I was always afraid of being wrong because I was me, because I was not supposed to be me. I still get those remarks. For instance, grown people are not supposed to have blue hair. We are not supposed to like dragons or pirates and stuff like that. And I have been told that all my life. So I learned that I was wrong, that anything I wanted to do was wrong. So I didn't like myself. My mom was an alcoholic, and she was never physically abusive, but mentally abusive. So she taught me from the beginning that, first of all, you're worth nothing. Second of all, she taught me that I had to look out for any kind of change in her behavior. And I know this is a sad beginning, but what I'm going to tell you is about, how I have taken these things and turned it into being a success in my field. Because you can either ignore what happened, you can feel sad about it, and you can sit and cry, or you can take the things and help them make you stronger. For the first 30 years of my life, I was not able to do this. And then I came to the Agile Coach Camp in Germany in 2011. Before that, I felt like I was the only one with a crooked nose. Like, no matter where I went, I was always the strange one. I was always the one who liked something different. When I went to university, I did computer science. My master thesis was really, really technical. My side topic was about process. And those two parts hated each other. It was really, really weird having this combination, and it was like being in a kindergarten sometimes when you would see those two. A little bit like Twitter sometimes. I came to the German Agile Coach Camp and I was terrified. Like, there were so many people I didn't know. The guy who said I should come was not there. And I felt like, am I even allowed to be here? And during the opening of the open space, I discovered this. I was not the only one who had a crooked nose. That's kind of how I feel it. Like if you've been adopted and you go like, why am I the only one with black hair or crooked nose? And all of a sudden you meet your biological family and you realize, wait, everyone is like that. Or most people are like that. That was what I experienced at this. So all of a sudden there are people who believed in changing the world. People who thought it was okay to say, I want to make the world a better place. I want to make the world a nicer place, who did not make fun of me. People who were sharing with others. So like several years before that, the conference who's now known as GoTo, used to be called JU, was in my city. And I would always have student volunteers staying because it's really expensive. And as a student, you don't have a lot of money. And I was like, well, we are going to be at a conference. I have some extra beds. For me, it costs nothing. For them, it helps. And my family was like, you let strangers into your house? And I was like, yes. And I realized, well, all of these people did that. For the first time in my life, I belonged somewhere. I was a part of something. And that literally changed my life. Before that, I would dress in gray and black, maybe dark blue sometimes, and I would try to hide. I did not want to be seen, because if I was seen, people would know I was wrong. So after that, I started changing a lot. I started embracing who I was. I got a tattoo about being brave enough to be who I am. And it was really, really difficult for me because it was so many things at once, and I was so excited and I wanted to do it all. And at the same time, I'm kind of like, What's happening? Am I becoming a different person? Until I met this clever guy who said, it's not about changing who you are. It's about becoming who you have always been. And that is what I have lived by since Alexei said this to me. It is about finding who you really are inside, after taking all these layers of what you are supposed to be and how you are supposed to be, and all these expectations of society. I was just talking to my timekeeper about why I am moving to Stockholm. And one of the reasons is that nobody makes stupid remarks about my blue hair, which they do in Denmark. Denmark is quite open, as long as you don't step too far outside. It's okay to be a little bit different, but not too much. Oh, we're all open and tolerant as long as you don't step out here. So when I was working in Stockholm, all of a sudden I realized I feel at home, which is one of the first times in my life. So I started changing and starting finding these links to the rest of my life, realizing that when I was young, there were Care Bears. They've come up several times and they'll probably come up again in 10 years. It's a little bit like the yo-yo. Every 10 years it's like, oh, this is in fashion, and then nobody knows about it. But this Care Bear is called Tender Bear. And what he does is he helps everyone show and express their feelings. He helps them become whole bears. He has a lot of effort to spread love and care around the world, and he is the one who initiates new members into the Care Bear family. And I realized this is what I try to do in the Agile community. I try to embrace people. I try to help them come in and make them see that they're welcome. Because sometimes when you come in, especially if you come into a place where people already know each other, it can feel like, oh wait, I'm the odd one out. So one of the things I started doing at conferences, for instance, is doing the Pac-Man, which means don't stand in a circle, but stand in a circle with an opening. So there's always room for someone to come in. Because even if you want people to come in, they're not going to come in if you just close the circle. You have to open it. I want to spread care in the world. I want to spread love in the world. And which I didn't say out loud for many, many years because I was told it was stupid. So actually when I was 9, I came up with this, which I will not say in the original language because I guess no one speaks Danish. But it's about if we do something that matters a lot to someone and a little to us, we can make the world a better place. And it can be so many things. It can be anything from smiling to someone, actually seeing someone. Maybe you have a car, you give someone a ride. It takes you 2 more minutes or 5 more minutes, but it will take them 30 minutes to get to the bus station. You hold the door for someone. Every small thing we do makes the world a better place, and it spreads. And I refound this, that I've been hiding for more than 30 years, because it's what literally my mom said, well, she didn't literally because she said it in Danish, said, do not help other people. It is stupid unless you get something out of it. That was how I was brought up. Where my core value is always help other people. Maybe you'll get something out of it, maybe you won't. If you don't get anything out of it, the world is a better place. And then we all won anyway. I found that the Agile coach community, all the coach camps, became a safe place to grow and explore. In 2012, a friend of mine and I were talking about Kanban. And in Swedish, a hug is called kram. So we invented Kramban, which means hug. And I decided to try out, giving free hugs. To me, a free hug is about seeing that person, really seeing that person. So it can even be non-physical. Because a lot of people don't like to hug. A lot of people don't like to touch other people. Maybe you have different cultures. But I do offer free hugs. I offer my attention to that person. I started getting out glitter tattoos for the fun of it. And it actually turned out it's quite popular at conferences. Right now I don't have it with me because it's in a storage room somewhere. But I started handing out these things, and all of a sudden I got known, like in Germany some people call me the Hugmeister, or the glitter fairy. So I started doing these things, and one of the things we always have had in the German Agile Coach Camp is lightning talks. And I got the courage to stand up and do some lightning talks. So the first big one was about hugs. There was this guy that I talked to had been at a conference, or one of the unconferences. He said, I felt so uncomfortable because everyone was hugging. And I don't like it, but I felt like if I did not hug people, I would offend them. So I decided to do this talk about how important hugging is, but also that when you do things like this, you need to be two who wants to do this. You need to have the other person want this as well, because it's so important that in a place we create safety, we don't violate other people's space. And the second one I talked about was actually not planned, which is about misogyny, which means, well, to me it means treating women as they are inferior. They are lower than men, and they cannot do all the things. And someone made a really inappropriate joke about a woman who came there and said, oh, I hope you made food for your husband so that he can survive the weekend. And it was just a small thing, but it was just the last thing that I heard that week that was kind of like, fuck it. So I went up and I just gave this whole talk about how we don't treat women as equals, but also how we don't treat men as equals. We so often talk about empowering women, and that is so true. But the other side of it is we don't empower men. A lot of men are brought up with, boys don't cry. You have to be strong. So they don't learn how to have emotions. Which then means that one of the most common causes of death for men up to 45 is suicide. 75% of the men dying in Scotland, which is the only place I have the numbers for, under 45 is suicide. It is the highest killer in Denmark, Sweden, England, Germany, Scotland. Because part of this reason is men don't know how to handle emotions. So they see no other option. So I talked about this. And this is actually from a really huge conference. This is the only time I met this woman. She came up to me, she just reached out her arm, I gave her a hug. And then her friend sent this picture to me. So I started kind of expanding it more, going out to conferences and actually tweeting that I offered hugs. Then I started in an Agile company and realized that my main tools are listening and caring. And in the beginning that felt really, really awkward because I was surrounded by all these clever coaches who knew about Scrum and Kanban. Well, I knew a little bit about those, but Kinevin and models and all these things that are amazing. And I tend to forget them. Because what I really do when I'm an Agile coach is I go in, I listen to people, and I genuinely care about them. And it took a long time for me to actually realize this is okay. This is actually a good way of doing it for me. It also means that I find transformations really, really boring because you have to kind of put everything into a machine to be able to transform. I prefer coming in later and helping people. Then someone challenged me and said, well, you have this Be Brave, you should do a talk. And I was terrified, but I still submitted it. So I did a talk in 13 about being brave and vulnerable. And I remember changing the last slides at 5 in the morning. And not knowing if anyone would ever come. And it started out with a few people. I think like 15 or something like that. And then because of the tweets, more and more people came. And I was like, whoa, this is actually something people want to hear about. And then in 14, I ended up giving 10 talks. And I feel like this is me. This is actually me dressed up because I'm going to see my niece for the first time. Whereas this is me a few years later trying to actually take a serious picture. But this is my friend Søren, and he hit the hand behind my back, actually has the clicker to the camera. And I just couldn't take it serious. So going from hiding and not trying to be seen and never laughing out loud, I went to, this is where I am. And I started really taking the stage. Okay. In 14, I did my first public workshop about exploring your courage, which I, by the way, planned over Twitter with a guy I met once. And then we met the day before the conference, we went through the slides, and we went and did a 3-hour workshop. Turned out afterwards he was terrified because he likes to plan and go for everything. But it worked out fun. Oh yeah, and I put in a kitten, so you can now rate me really well. It's not showing up on that screen. So there's only one screen working. Just saying. So in 2014, I decided to talk about stress and depression. So I suffer from depressions. At the moment, I don't suffer from it because I take antidepressives, but I have had depressions most of my life. I just didn't know until 2005. And I realized so many people have problems, mental problems, depressions, anxiety, and nobody talks about it because we are supposed to be professionals. A lot of people talk about being really busy, but usually the ones who are stressed do not talk about this. And again, I was like, is anyone even gonna hear this? So I submitted to a conference, I was accepted, and I was like, shit. So again, I did the thing about, I just changed my slides in the very last moment, and the room was stuffed. It was supposed to have 40 people in there was at least 70. And last year I did it in Budapest, and there were 800 people at a technical conference listening to my talk on stress and depression. Because it's a huge, huge problem we have in our industry, that we do get stressed, we do have depressions, we do have anxiety, and it's very dangerous for us. So then I decided to try out a new kind of hair, which was a little bit funny because my family was like, who's gonna hire you? And I'm kind of like, I am working for Lego, they play, it actually in Danish it means play well. Kind of, if that was not a place to have blue hair, I don't know. So I was actually at the place where all the designers were for Lego. So they had like in one area it had all the IT people, in the other area it had all the designers. They look really weird, some of them. In a good way. It was awesome. It's awesome seeing these people who can just take 4 bricks and make something amazing out of it. So, cool, thank you. But I kind of wanted to try it out because I saw so many people. And the funny thing is, it felt so natural. It felt like, this is how I was supposed to look. And it's actually funny because 3 years ago, my brother married a Ukrainian woman. But I still don't speak Russian, except Privyet and Bosh, yeah. But true. Pravda. Babushka. Think that's about it. Nastrovia. But she saw a picture of me. So she's never seen me with anything but blue hair. And a year ago, she saw a picture of me from earlier, and she's like, that is so not you. You look like a totally different person. The blue hair is so much more natural on you. And she's like, I know this sounds crazy, but that's how I see it. And that's also what I feel is it's so much more natural. I still kept doubting myself. And one of the things I learned was that there's a thing called the imposter syndrome, which basically means that really intelligent people think that they're not very smart. They think that at some point somebody's going to find out that I'm not really a coder, a tester, an agile coach, or whatever, because I was just lucky to get here. And I have this sometimes. I've learned how to fight it. I've also learned how to use it because I now know that the reason I have the imposter syndrome is because I'm good at what I do. But so many people have this. Liam Neeson, when he did a new movie last year, he's like, I'm over 60. At some point, somebody's going to find out I'm not an action hero. Neil Gaiman, who's a famous author, so many of the really big, famous people we see have imposter syndrome. So many people I meet in the industry have imposter syndrome. And this guy comes up to me, he's like, hi, I'm Jose, I want you to speak at my conference. And I'm like, okay, hi. what is your conference? What do you want me to talk about? It's like, I don't care. You're a good speaker. I was like, okay, I'm going to speak about the imposter syndrome because that's like crazy. That someone who never met me before, who saw a talk online, just wants me to speak at this conference and speak about anything I want. So I started speaking about this. So this is my friend Torbjørn and I from when we did our workshop. And we were kind of like, I'm actually not good enough for the imposter syndrome. And I meet this every single time I do the talk about imposter syndrome. Somebody comes up to me and says, I feel all the things you described, except that I'm not smart. I'm not good enough for that. And I tell them, yes, you are. You just don't know it yet. So this talk and my stress and depression have traveled the world, which is really insane because I've done it, I think I've only done it in Europe, but I got a email from Brazil one day saying, I am the wife of a developer who saw your talk and showed it to me. And I didn't know there was a thing called the imposter syndrome. And now we've been talking about it at my workplace. And all of a sudden we realize we are not the only ones. Because this takes one person to start speaking about this thing. And that's also what the uncomfortable is about. It's about feeling safe enough to start speaking about these small things. Because when I spoke about this the first time, it was not comfortable at all. When I spoke about stress and depression, it was not comfortable at all. But my definition of courage, if something is important enough, you do it anyway. We all have things that are really important to us. They are all different. To some people, coming here today can be really, really brave. Maybe you don't like being around a lot of people. Courage is about overcoming those things if it is important enough. And to me, the imposter syndrome was important enough for that. In 16, I tried to move in and said, I'm going to have 3 goals. So the interesting part is I don't know what goal number 3 is, because I forgot. But the first one was I want to embrace all of what I am, because I learned to love. I love that I'm brave. I love that I can stand on a stage. I love my blue hair. I hate that I'm weak. I hate that I still get depressions. I hate that sometimes I just curl up in a ball and don't want to go outside because the world is horrible and I'm horrible and I should just go away. And that was my big goal for 2016, to embrace all of that and saying, yes, it might not be perfect, but it's me and I'm okay. And I felt like I did this in 16. And it's a never-ending story because you do this, you figure out, okay, I'm okay, and then you realize, there's this layer you haven't looked at yet. There's this thing you have inside, there's another place where you need to improve. And the important thing for me is to learn to actually take breaks, to stop and take those breaks and just be who I am right now. I don't have to improve because I'm okay how I am right now. And then it won't take that long, and then I'll just start doing it again. Except if somebody kicks me. Because the thing about improving all the time is it's really, really stressful. Changing is really, really stressful. Our brain hates change. Our brain would love if everything was just the same, because that's so energy efficient. So every time we change, it takes a lot of energy. So we need to embrace that and have the time to rest. Just as you would rest if you do a marathon. You rest when you use your brain. You rest when you use your courage. You rest when you change. Because otherwise we get stressed. I have not yet learned how to stop my stress, except I've learned how to ask for help, which was so hard. I'm very good at asking help for physical stuff. I forgot my clicker. Can I borrow one? I need to put up a painting, which I have no clue how to hang up anything, and I will not sing or play anything for you, because you would have to go to a mental hospital. Stuff like that, I'm fine with asking for help for that. But as soon as it comes to me, please help me take some of my tasks. Please help me rest. I can't do that. So I need to be really careful with keep going. And the other part was getting paid what I'm worth. Way too often we get pushed into this, but we don't have that much money, blah, blah, blah. I tried it in organizations where they would be like, we just hired you last year and you have a really good pay. So, the others are not paid as well, so you won't get a raise. And I accepted that the first times, and I found out that the guys didn't. The men said, yes, that's very well, you did give me a good pay, but I'm worth more. It also meant that I had to end some friendships in 2016 because the people I worked together with, it turned out that we were good friends until I started demanding what I was worth. They basically got a lot of money for forwarding my invoice. And when I said, this is not acceptable anymore, they tried to trick me. The thing is, I forgot to tell them that I may also have studied business economics, and my favorite subject was law. So I read the EU law on competition clauses and the Estonian law on that as well. So I got paid what I was worth, just not with them. And that's another thing I found out. Because I look like a woman, because I am a woman, because I work mostly with soft things, people see me as soft and easy to manipulate. And especially they can use my feelings. That does not work with me. I can just tell you, people from the northern part of Denmark are really, really stubborn. Really, really stubborn. And if somebody tries to go, oh, but you know, this guy, he's just getting divorced and it's really hard for him in a business situation. Inside my head, I'll just go, fuck you, that's not my problem. And outside, I will become really hard. But I get this underestimation all the time. I get guys not wanting to talk to me, especially guys, sadly. Well, that's most of what we have as developers for now, until we make it better. Who will go like, I had this one guy when I was working in Germany, he was always struggling. Every time I was saying something, he would come in with remarks and stuff. So I had a one-on-one with him, and I said, I sense a lot of resistance with you. And he says, yeah, but it's going to be better because I just realized you studied computer science. Before I just thought you were a woman with all this soft stuff. Now I know you're okay. And I was like, thank you, but no. You need to respect people for what they do, technical or not. Same like we call a lot of what we do soft skills. They're damn hard. I mean, I can think it's not easy to learn how to code or to test or to create software projects, but learning how to have empathy, to communicate, to work with people you might not like, and collaborate well. Those are the hard things. So one of my friends called them the hard interrelational skills, because that's what it's really about. It's about all these relations that we have. And then I had a third goal and I never got to that. So I can't tell you what that is because I can't find my notes from 16. And one of the things I realized during that year and my coaching was the thing that I'm really, really good at is reading people. I'm really, really good at reading people because my mom was an alcoholic who could change her temper just like that. And I would be watching her all the time. And people who grow up in an abusive environment, whether it is alcohol or violence or sexual abuse or mental abuse or whatever, they learn how to watch people. Some of them can feel a bit scary because it almost feels like they read your mind. And I'm very, very good at that. I'll be like, some people are looking a little bit confused, and I'll be handing them their keys because I'll go like, "What, you leaving and you can't find your keys?" And they'll go like, "Whoa." But that ability I have used now to read people. So the stuff that happened to me when I was a kid and growing up and not belonging now makes me really, really good at help people feeling like they belong. I'm very, very good at reading people, so when I do a one-on-one coaching and I start listening to them, I hear what they're not saying. And this is actually from my doctor. So I was at my doctor because I started having severe depressions again. And for the first time in my life, I had suicide thoughts. And I need to do something about this. So I got new medication. And she said, you know what? Your curse is your gift. The thing that gives you depression, the thing that makes you so vulnerable and tired sometimes, that is the thing that allows you to help people all over the world, to reach people, to touch them. Your curse is your gift. So last year I was speaking at a conference called Beyond Tech. And when they were advertising me, they wrote Agile coach and activist. And I went like, I'm not an activist. Activists are like people walking on the streets fighting for climate change or stuff like that. And then I took a step back and I realized maybe I am. Inclusive collaboration is, well, we never really got it started properly, but we're trying to create work environments that works for everyone. Most of our working environments are targeted at extroverted people who are what we call neurotypical. 1 in 70 are autistic in the normal population. If we look into IT, it's a lot bigger. If the mother is in IT or tech, it's a lot bigger. We have a lot of autistic people in our industry. We have a lot of people with ADHD. We have a lot of people who are introvert. We have a lot of people who don't like sounds or other things. How can we create working environment that helps for this? So one of the things we've been very active in doing is getting conferences to make quiet rooms. If you go to a conference like this all day, and especially, I mean, most of you are not English native speakers, so you will be listening in English. Or maybe you speak Ukrainian as your mother's tongue and you'll be listening in Russian. You get tons of input, plus a different language. That can be really hard. So we have a lot of conferences now who have a quiet room where you can go in and not talk to anyone. Just be with your own thoughts. I fight for equal marriage for everyone, because I believe love is so hard to find that as long as it's grown-ups, we should not do anything about it. And there's consent, of course. People need to have consent. I talk about Black lives. I was like, I don't do very much for the environment until I realized that I bring my coffee cup to conferences so I don't have to use paper cups. I started traveling with this so I don't have to use so many plastic bottles. I am actually an activist. And even though I don't normally talk about this at the conference, people see me with it. And I'm not afraid to speak up about these things. It was actually funny when I was talking about this the first time. One of my friends came up to me afterwards. He's like, I was so sure you were a lesbian. I never met anyone who talked about all these things without being a gay or lesbian person. I was like, no. I just think we all deserve to love who we love. People are not used to speaking up this way. So I started doing these things, and one of the things I realized that what I'm really good at is finding the problem really, really fast. But that is one thing that can be really, really painful. What I then do is I mentally take people by the hand and I help them find their way out of it. That's what I realized. That is how I work as an Agile coach. I started talking about communication, about how you can have all the skills of communication, but if you don't have the attitude, it's not going to help you. I discovered something called psychological safety, which is about show yourself, employ yourself, speak up about things without fear of negative consequence. And it was quite interesting because this became really, really popular after Google made a thing about it in 2014. Effective teams need psychological safety. But it's actually from around 69 or 8, I think. But I discovered this, and I was lucky enough to be in a place where I could work with this. And realizing this is what I've been doing for a very long time. I've been creating safe spaces. A lot of people think that a safe space is a place where you feel comfortable all the time, but it's not. It's about feeling safe enough to feel uncomfortable. Like, for instance, I was working with a guy when I was working at Spotify, and he once took half of Spotify down. It was before it was really big, but still. And then they had to do like a retrospective look into this, and he did not feel unsafe. It was quite uncomfortable taking half of Spotify down. If you make a mistake, whether it's a small one or a big one, it feels uncomfortable to speak about it. But we need to create environments where it is safe to speak about these things. We need to create environments where it is safe to speak up, where you can raise things, where you can ask questions all the time, where you can ask for help without being afraid to be fired or whatever. We had the big Boeing planes who went down. Actually, a lot of people tried to raise these problems, and they got either threatened or fired in Boeing. It took 2 planes going down and killing people before they started doing something. That is like almost a model of unsafe environment. So I started changing even more. This is Agile testing days. Where so Agile testing days has a unicorn as their logo. And then they had one on stage, so I had to try it out. And the reason I'm wearing a Batman dress is because the party theme was about comic book heroes or cartoon heroes. And I had a Batman dress that I wanted to wear. So I kind of moved into this, and one of the things I was told was, you are so badass. When the whole Me Too thing came up, women started contacting me and said, will you listen to my story? People I had never met before, talking about how they were sexually harassed or abused or whatever. And after a while, I asked this woman, like, why are you contacting me? She's like, you are so badass. No one would ever do this to you, but you are very good at listening. You're very loving. So people contacted me and I listened to their stories. And I sometimes retell them because they are afraid to. And nothing ever happened to me after I was 30. So maybe I am badass. And I have this way of speaking hard to people in a loving way. Maybe because I don't judge them. Maybe because I have a lot of patience. I am very proud of what I do, but I'm also humble. Because I'm really good at listening and caring about people, but the people I'm working with are really good at what they do. That's why they are there. So I realized, okay, apparently that is my topic now. I'm a badass, caring person. I started to standing by all my values, authenticity. You see what you get. You get what you see, that's what I was trying to say. Before I didn't care to. I started speaking about sharing and caring and honesty. I want to make the world a better place. I literally want to make the world a better place. There's so much going on. There's so much hate. I want a place that has a lot more love. I want a place where you can be who you are and you can, as long as you're respectful, as long as you don't hurt other people, you can be who you are. So what I think we need as a change is a world where it's okay to be. Not always do. We do when it's hurting us. I want a world where we are kind, where we can be different, where we can respect and support each other in our differences, and where we care about each other. That is my hope for the future. Just as a note, these slides will also be sent to Alexei, and I think you'll put them up somewhere. There are all my contact information if you want to talk to me about this. I am very open. Mail, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever. Coffee. While I'm here, I'll be here today and tomorrow during the Agile Coach thing. And there are links to a lot of things I've been talking about. So, thank you for listening to me.